mean, when I was a DevOps engineer and a software engineer and also an SRE, site reliability engineer, it was a bit easier to say, this is what I do for the website or for the platform, this is what I create. So that was a bit easier. But now I really struggle with, you know, being a community engineer / in like advocacy, because that, I don't think it's like a role that's talked about enough. And yeah, when I talk to non-tech folk about it, everyone's like, wait, what? So you do this and that? And I'm like, yeah, that's an actual job. Yes, exactly. But yeah, so I'll give you a quick overview of like what I do. So I'm, like I said, I'm a community engineer, and I currently work in a developer and community success team at Gitpod. And what this team does in a nutshell is developer relations, advocacy, and community. So my role specifically is more on the community side. So I do all sorts of different things, but I think to really drill it down to 3 different things, it would be the first thing that my responsibility is around building and supporting our like growing developer community. I could talk a bit more about Gitpod in a bit, but right now we are an early stage company, and so our developer community is super important to us to grow. And so yeah, I help build and support that by supporting our community members with getting started with Gitpod or any issues that they may have using Gitpod, and essentially just growing the Gitpod community from there. And then the second part of my role is telling the whole world about Gitpod in every opportunity that I can. So that's around like that's more of the traditional dev advocacy and developer relations aspect of my role. So that includes like speaking at events, running workshops and demos, creating educational content to explain to our community or people who come across Gitpod what Gitpod is all about and what they should expect. So I do loads of different things, but like right now I'm creating blog posts, newsletters, YouTube videos, and a podcast launching soon for Gitpod, and also engaging on social media and, you know, seeing the key sort of pain points that developers go through and how Gitpod and developer environments in general can help them get past that. So yeah, it's sort of a very much a advocacy, educational tech role. You know, it's one of those things that I'm still full disclaimer, I'm still like learning. I did just join in July, and so every single day I spend in the developer advocacy and relations space, the more I learn about my role. And a good thing about being a Gitpod is I really get to shape how I want it to look like. And for me, the content, the education, the teaching other people, paying it forward to our community was super important to me, and something I highlighted as part of the first stages of, you know, defining my role, because yeah, I think community is at the center of everything, which I'm sure we'll get into as well in a bit. But I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I think if you ask anybody who works in DevRel, you're going to get a slightly different answer, but the same core answer, which is there's just so much. There's so many different things in DevRel. And for me personally, I don't know if you agree with this, DevRel is like the whole umbrella that encompasses all of these different things that you talked about, like developer experience, developer advocacy, community, all of those things. So yeah, DevRel is kind of like the overarching discipline. And then within that, you've got all those different things, because you are a senior community engineer. And actually, that's not a job title that I've seen a huge amount. I've seen a lot of developer advocates, like I myself, I'm a community manager, but I haven't seen that many community engineers around. So yeah, there are loads of different job titles.
I think it's definitely growing as well. It's definitely growing, because like you said, community engineer wasn't a title that I heard when I first heard of developer advocacy. I didn't even know community engineer was a title, but then when we were shaping my role, it came up as, you know, my official title, and I was like, this sums me up in a nutshell. Community engineer. It's like, I mean, developer advocate was something I also very much relate to, but community engineer made a lot of sense for me. But yeah, it's growing. It's a growing space.
Yeah, and I think what folks will find as well, if they join a developer advocacy team or a developer relations team, a lot of the time these teams are quite new. So a lot of companies are now putting these teams in newly. So you do have the opportunity in many companies to try and shape that role to you. We'll go into that a bit later because, like you say, it's such a multifaceted role. Some people are really good at everything, but other people have got their own strengths. So it does help if you can do that. So with all of that in mind, then one of the questions that somebody sent in beforehand when they signed up for this was they want to know what your main motivation was for choosing a career in DevRel.
Oh, I love that question. I could go into that for like hours and hours. I love that question. For me, so my motivation to get into DevRel was actually, it sort of all clicked. So at university. So at university, I did biomedical sciences, and I did that for 4 years, really, really loved it. But it just wasn't the career I wanted to go into. And I think it was in my second year at uni, I felt really lost and really confused. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And my course was actually a 3-year course. So when I was in my second year, it was all of the careers people started talking about next steps after you graduate, and I went into this, I started spiraling, and I just like, I can't do this, I don't know what to do. And so I opted in to try and look for a placement year at that time. And I ended up getting a placement year that wasn't in biomedical sciences, but more in communications and external engagement for a specific department in the university. And even though I actually had to fight a lot for that placement year, because, you know, the biomed department were like, this isn't really related to biomed. But I argued that this is really important for me to grow as a person, because I still don't know what to do, and it's good to explore. So around that time, when I went into my my placement year, I discovered a community called Code First Girls. And for those listening and who have never heard of Code First Girls, it's essentially a community that helps teach women how to code, and they've been running since, I think, 2014, 2015, something like that. And I saw this community and I was like, oh, coding, I like coding, because in my spare time it was a hobby for me to create fan sites when I was growing up, like High School Musical fan sites, and like fan sites on movies I really loved and stuff like that. And so I did that, and I essentially was like, okay, I've never coded anything with other people, so I was like, why not? I'll just join this. I'll just join this course. I'll join this community, because I've been coding all by myself, and it's a good skill to have. And I was in this phase where I was like trying to learn as many different things as possible to try and understand what I wanted to do, because I was just a lost university student. So at the same time, found Code First Girls, and honestly, I remember going into the course. It was a 6-week course on the basics of web development and front-end development. And I had already learned the basics of front-end development in my spare time, but when I went into that class, I learned so much about collaborating with other software engineers and using Git, using GitHub, different frameworks, and all of these things I just didn't know. So it was really good in terms of learning about the tech, but also I fell into this amazing community, amazingly supportive community, where all the instructors, all of the students, the wider community that wasn't based in Sheffield, which is where I went to uni, but based in London, everyone was so supportive. Everyone had my back, and every time I expressed how lost I was in my career at that point, they were like, have you ever thought about coding? Because you're pretty good at it, like, this could be a career. And I remember just laughing like, ha, that's hilarious, because this isn't a real job. Like, this isn't real. Like, this is not, people get paid for this. Are you seriously? And then they were like, yeah, some of the instructors were software engineers themselves, and I was like mind blown. So I decided, with the power of Code First Girls community backing me up, to go into tech. And it was that moment, that time period where I became a instructor for Code First Girls, and I started teaching the basics of front-end development to other students. And then I also taught a bit of Python as well. And then it sort of just all blew up for me. I went to these courses, started building a community. So it wasn't just the course, it was like learning about the different careers in tech, because that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know the different careers in tech as well. And so I sort of built it around this course. And so eventually over the next 2 years, I kept going to these coding courses. I started teaching them, I started advocating for them. And then I found myself like one time on the train from Sheffield to Nottingham, taking 30 women who signed up to the Code First Girls course with me to a conference because I didn't want to go by myself. And so we all went together, and then there was a Women in Tech conference in Nottingham, with Knots, one of my favorite conferences of all time. We learned so much from the women there who told us about their careers. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. That inspired me to then go into public speaking. And then I started talking about how I was trying to get into tech, what I was learning like in the tech space. And I started writing blogs, started filming videos, started creating things around my desire to go into tech. And then fast forward to when I graduated, I eventually got a job in tech as a software engineer in it was part of a graduate scheme, but I did loads of different roles there that gave me the chance to understand what it's really like to work in tech. So I did software engineering, DevOps, SRE, also in architecture, and that was all really fun. But when I was a graduate, I learned that no matter what role I did, I always felt like I gravitated towards the community. I always gravitated to outreach. I always gravitated to wanting to share what I learned as part of my graduate scheme or like in the tech space. I wanted to share that with someone. I wanted to share it with the community. I wanted to help other people who were also facing this issue, like not understanding. I had a phase with AWS. When I was in DevOps, I really loved AWS. And I noticed that there was a huge gap between complete beginners who knew nothing about servers or AWS cloud technologies and actually getting into it. So then I started learning in public, and then that in turn inspired other people to also learn AWS. Then suddenly so many people like who were in my circle started getting AWS certified, and it felt really good. And so I remember taking notes of all of these things that I enjoyed as part of my like outreach stuff, but also took note of what people were saying about like me. Whenever I gave a talk, I would read feedback that people gave as part of the conference or the meetup, and people would say, you know, Pauline, you're like really good at this sort of thing. You're really good at talking. You're really good at sharing and getting people really excited about whatever it is you're talking about. Like, have you ever considered DevRel? And I remember hearing DevRel in different communities that I eventually started finding myself in. So I was in hackathons, Code First Girls, Hack Meds, medicine and tech communities all over Sheffield. I just was all over Sheffield in 2017, 2018, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I got really curious about developer relations and the advocacy role. And every time I looked at someone who did it, I was like, they are out of this world though. They're really good at explaining technical concepts. I'm probably good at explaining it from like a foundational level because I'm learning it from that level, like from zero. And so I just was like, yeah, I don't think I'd be that good. But then people kept saying, you know, you should look into it in the future. And then fast forward to 2021, I was having a crisis, as everyone has had over the past 2 years over lockdown, where I was like, okay, I really enjoy coding. I really enjoy being a DevOps engineer. I enjoy like picking up tickets from the left of my Jira board and then moving it to the right to completion. Really enjoy that. But I was like, what am I doing with my life? there's something here, there's something about just coding for me that wasn't enough. And I realized every time in every single job I've ever had, I've always centered around community. I've always centered around teaching. I've also always centered around paying it forward, no matter what role I had. Even if I was a graduate, I was helping other graduates get into the graduate scheme. If I was an SRE, I was writing content to tell people how to get into SRE. When I started learning about cloud, I did the same thing. And so I was like, okay, what role is that? And then developer relations and dev advocacy again came up. And I was like, okay, this is a sign now. I need to do something about this. So I started reaching out to DevRel folk on Twitter. And I had lots of different conversations with different types of developer advocates and developer relations people. And a lot of them gave me the same feedback. They were like, we've been watching you for years and you're so good at this. You were born to do a role like this. And I was like, thank you for hyping me up. Like, how do I get started? And they were just like, yeah, I mean, you are still early in your career though. So a lot of the advice I got actually was people saying, just keep your head down. Like, just be as technically good as you can, like maybe focus on one thing, like a specific technical thing, and then you'll find yourself advocating for it in the future. And I was like, okay. So 5-10 years of just me heads down. Yeah, okay, all right, okay. So then I sort of just like let it go until someone from GitPod, where I work now, got in touch with me and was like, I think you're great for this role, let's talk. And then long story short, I am where I am now because someone took a chance on me, because they realized like, yes, I am still early in my career, but I have the drive to learn. I've shown that time and time again over the course of my 3 years in tech. And so they were like, we'll give you a shot. And that's sort of what led me to DevRel, and sort of why I was really excited by the whole career path. It was the communities that I started with that got me into tech in the first place, and then eventually finding my passion in sharing things with other people and creating content around it. And at the end of the day, I just feel I feel fulfilled when I help somebody else, and I feel like I'm contributing to the world. It's different to contributing in a technical sense, but more contributing to someone's aha moments, or, you know, that moment where they're like, oh, how did I live without this before in my life? This has changed my life, you know? And so yeah, I just sort of really love that. And I sort of feel like that's one of my callings. And yeah, long story short, I reflected a lot, tweeted about it, talked to people, and they gave me a shot. So sorry.
Oh, no, that's a brilliant story. And I remember in April when you manifested, you decided you were just going to like tell the whole world, I can see myself working in DevRel in the future. And that was April this year. And then by July this year, you actually were working in DevRel. So it definitely does work. But and I watched one of your videos the other week where you talked about that journey in a lot more detail. Oh, yes. And it definitely sounds to me like it was like a compound effect. So you talked about the fact that you've been making websites since you were at school. Yeah. And so you had that technical knowledge then, and then you got involved in community, and then you were doing some blogging and all of that good stuff. So it definitely compounded, and that even though you've got 3 years of tech experience and some folks were trying to tell you that you needed a lot more, you had already been essentially doing the role before yes. you got the role. But what would you say to folks that that, you know, maybe haven't been doing websites for that long or haven't been involved in the community for that long? Like, how would you advise them? Because, you know, you've got quite a big social media following as well, and a lot of DevRels have too. And I think that's quite scary for folks that don't have that, and they kind of think that's kind of reserved for the Twitter famous people. What advice would you give folks that want to get into DevRel that maybe haven't got that foundation already?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And thank you for bringing that up, because I think there is that like misconception where people are like, oh, you can only go into DevRel because you have like X amount of Twitter followers, which is completely like, it just happens. That's just what happens. And it's interesting because when I first got into tech, I only had like I don't know, like 50 followers or something. But I think the more I got into community, the more people started following me and hearing about the work that I did. And then it became this whole thing. Like, you know, when I look at my Twitter analytics, it's sort of like, it sometimes gives me anxiety, because I'm like, it's really like literally like 2014 nothing, and then it just, yeah, it's sort of interesting. But anyways, to answer your question, yeah, I think the most important thing right now for anyone who wants to get started in DevRel is to just get involved with the community. But even before that, actually, to create a space where you can showcase your the things that you can do. So I think, I can't prove this, but one of the things that I think that led me to where I am now, and you mentioned the compounding effect that I mentioned in my other video, was the fact that I have a portfolio. So on paulinenarvas.com, I built this in 2017, this website, and since then I've been iterating it. So every week I actually like look at it and I'm like, okay, is there anything I need to add? No, then leave it. If there is anything I can add, I add it. So it's been this thing that over the years I have been adding to. And I remember saying to myself when I was first getting started in this space, it wasn't just like in DevRel, but also in tech, because I wanted to show people what I was capable of without a computer science degree. So this is why I built my website. And when I first built it, I was like, this is the place I'm going to just dump everything I've ever done. And if you go on it now, it really is. It really does show everything I've ever done. But yeah, so I think for people listening, create like a foundation. That's all you need. One foundation. That could be a website or even a GitHub a profile, just to showcase your technical skills. And then eventually on top of that, have somewhere that showcases your ability to like communicate technical jargon, technical like concepts. And that's what I did. So I have a YouTube playlist that showcases all the talks I've ever done that was recorded, and some of them just talking about general career stuff, some of them are talking about really technical things, and some of them is just me like just sharing what I learned or whatever. And I think over time that has grown, and if I'm being 100% like transparent and being honest, the reason I got my role in DevRel is because someone Mike, my colleague, who had been following me since 2018, had followed my journey so 2018 was the first time I got my first tech job in BT, and then they followed me the whole time and saw me grow. And so yeah, I think people who want to get into DevRel now, start now, just create like a foundational place where you can throw things on and then keep living out loud almost. That's sort of the things that I've been doing over the past few years, like getting better at Twitter and LinkedIn and just sharing things that I've done and being unapologetic about it, because it's a struggle, especially when you're a woman and a person of color. Sometimes I feel like, who am I to talk like this? Who am I to share? Like, I'm not like the other people who's in tech, but you know, I found my voice and I just kept going, and I think it's, you know, come back and given me so many great returns. So yeah, I would just say to people wanting to start now, create a foundation, create a website, create I don't know, like even a list, even just like a Word document or a Google document, if you don't want to be too out there, of all the things that you can do. And once you get to the interview stage, throw them at your interviewer one by one. That's sort of what works for me. But yeah, you certainly don't need like 100k followers to get into DevRel. Like, that's ridiculous. So
yeah, no, I'm glad you said that. And I love the body language and you said throw them in the interview, because you were like, yeah, we're really going to pummel them with all the great stuff you can do. Yeah, and I agree with you as well. But it is, yeah. And have a place where you showcase the stuff, like you said. And for me, I would add to that, don't get hung up on what platform you're going to use. Like if you want to blog, just go to Medium or Hashnode or somewhere like that and start your blog. Because I hear so many people like, I want to blog, but I don't know which platform to use. Like, just write something.
Just write.
Yeah, otherwise you'll never get started.
Absolutely.
And, you know,
absolutely.
it is easy to look, yeah, it's so easy to look at folks that are on Twitter and they've got loads of followers and they've got their own website and stuff, and you think you need that, but you've got to start somewhere, haven't you? So yeah, I think your advice is really good, and especially what you said about being a woman and a person of colour as well. I know exactly what you mean. And yeah, the answer is we just need to take up space and don't feel bad about it, because you know, everybody else is, so we need to do that too. So on that note, I've got my first quick fire round for you. Don't be scared about this. It's supposed to be fun. I'm going to ask you some very quick questions. Don't go into any depth, just say the first thing that comes into your head, right?
Let's do it.
No pressure. Right. Yeah, cool. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Yeah, are you sure? I'll give you a chance to change your mind. You did
Dogs.
Okay,
dogs.
Okay, good. Country you'd love to visit?
A country I'd like to visit. Oh my God, there's so many places in the world I'd like to visit. Thailand. Yeah, Asia's actually.
Nice. Yeah, I recommend it. Yeah. Favorite meetup?
Oh, it has to be Tech Knots. It has to be Tech Knots.
Ladies of Code London is a close second though, right?
Oh, of course, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't fishing for any particular answer there, but you know, now that you've mentioned it, yeah, Ladies of Code London is quite good. Yeah, Tech Knots is brilliant as well. I'm a member there and I highly recommend them too. So yeah, next one then, early bird or night owl?
Early bird, easily.
Marmite, yeah, Marmite, love or hate?
Oh, hate. Oh.
Yeah, well, it's one or the other. I don't think there's any in between there. Favorite app?
Favorite. The fitness app on Apple, the one that links with your watch and shows Apple Fitness Plus. I really love that app. I've been using it every day.
Cool. Weights or cardio?
Weights, easily.
Yeah, I noticed recently you've been doing more. Yeah. I know you're really into your fitness and everything. Cool. Now here's a good one. Wednesday or United?
Oh, I don't have an opinion.
Okay. That's good.
I don't have an opinion. I don't really like football, so yeah, no opinion.
That's good. So any people that you know in Sheffield are not gonna.
Yeah, they're not happy. Honestly, we've
had
this conversation. Yeah.
Good. Well, it's unusual to have two football teams in the same city, so I just thought I'd ask you that question. Silicon Valley or Silicon Roundabout?
Silicon Valley.
Yep. Apple or BlackBerry?
Apple all the way. Sorry.
I was just checking. I've been following you on Twitter for a little while, and yeah, in the time I've followed you, you've had at least 2 iPhones.
Oh my gosh, that is
I
so true. Yeah,
one.
this is a new iPhone. I'm ashamed, but I'm sorry. Yeah.
There's no need to be ashamed. You're in tech. You're allowed to have the tech. It's all good. It's all good. Kindle or physical book?
Oh, Kindle.
Yeah, especially if you want to move house.
Yes.
It's one thing you have to bring, not loads of things. Yep. Accept cookies or reject cookies?
Accept cookies.
Well, it adds to the user experience, unfortunately, doesn't it? So yeah, I'm with you on that. Favorite meal to cook at home?
Oh, I've been really liking steak. I've learned how to cook steak recently with a bit of sweet potato and other root vegetables. I just feel like I feel really energized after, which is actually what I had before I joined this meetup. So
nice. I'm hungry. I didn't eat before I came on this meetup, so now I'm really hungry. But yeah, if you can cook steak, then I feel like you've got a few adult points there, definitely. I think you've arrived.
I'm good. I like that.
Steak.
I appreciate that actually.
Yeah, especially if, like, you know, in the before times when you're allowed to have folks around to your house for dinner, like a lot of people, and then everybody wants their steak different. and you've got to get them all out at the same time. But yeah, if you can do that, then you're a genius.
My partner likes his like a specific way, medium rare, whereas I like mine a bit more done. And so yeah, I've balanced it. I'm pretty good now. Yeah,
you've got it. The last one in this quick fire round: a product you wish existed.
I wish there was something like Tinder, but for friends. Like a friendship Tinder, where you can connect with loads of different people, because I feel like that's one of my struggles right now as an adult that doesn't that's part of a lot of like work related communities, and I've made some friends from there, but I sort of crave sometimes making friends who aren't from tech, but all of my friends are in tech because that's where I hang out the most. So sometimes I wish there was like an app that was sort of like Tinder that connects me with people who have similar interests to me, like who like plants. So I could connect with plant people, but yeah.
Yeah, the one that comes to mind is Bumble, which is a dating app, but there is a friends section to it. I'm not sure if you can plug in your interests and stuff. I
didn't know that. Oh, so that does exist.
Yeah, right. Don't Google it now because we're kind of in the middle of an event. Do it after this. But try Bumble because they have got a friends section on there.
Oh, I'm taking a note right now. Bumble. Okay.
Okay. Right, yeah, make a note there on your Apple Watch. It's all good. Cool. Well, yeah. Well done for surviving the speed round. There is another one coming up later with different questions, so I shall unleash that in you before the end of the event. But yeah, thanks for humouring me there. So we've had a question in from the audience, and you have touched on this a little bit, but can you tell us, do you need to be technically really good at something to get into this field? And do you need to be a senior before even considering it? And I know you said you've got 3 years experience in tech, and you weren't a junior software engineer when you moved into DevRel. But do you need to be a senior before you can even consider going into DevRel?
That's such a good question. And this was one of my questions to the DevRel people that I spoke to. And it was like various different answers depending on who you spoke to. But for me, I think I've been looking around like the job market in DevRel, just not because I'm looking to move, but also just because some people have been asking me how I can get into this space. And I've actually seen recently there's been a lot of junior DevRel positions starting to like open up. So I hope, like, first and foremost, I hope that sort of touches on the fact that you don't need to be a senior to get into DevRel. There is plenty of room for every different type of person to get into the space. And at the end of the day, the only thing that you really need is the like desire and the drive to learn. I'm still, honestly, the jump from being a graduate to then becoming senior, that's still something I'm trying to get my head around. And sometimes it's like a really bad imposter syndrome telling me, oh, they gave you that, you managed to talk your way into that, but you're not actually a senior. But I don't know, like I would say that there is plenty of room for junior people, and I think it would be good for you to be to showcase that you are like adaptable to different technologies. I think that was where my strength was, because I've played around with loads of different technologies over the course of time I was at BT. Like I said, I did software engineering, architecture, DevOps, cloud, SRE. So I really covered almost the full stack, to be honest. And it was really, really good because it really opened my eyes to all the different technologies. And that was actually one of my issues. One of my issues when I first got into DevRel was that certain people were telling me you need to focus on one thing. If you are too all over the place, it's not very good. But then I would speak to other people in different DevRel teams who would say, when you have a breadth of skill across different areas, so across different technical areas, that makes you more hireable because they know that you're able to adapt to the code base that you're looking at. And luckily for me, well, at GitPod as a DevRel, you literally get all sorts of things thrown at you, because Gitpod is a developer environment that can host any programming language. So I have seen it all in the last 5 months. I've been able to tackle it just based on my previous experience of different programming languages. It sort of just comes together anyway. And also, Google is your best friend. You'll find out, you'll figure it out. So
that's true, isn't it? And like, even if you're a software engineer that doesn't work in DevRel, Google's still your best friend. So it kind of holds true across tech. But that, yeah, yes, exactly. And we're so lucky to have that now. But yeah, that brings me on to my next question then, brings me on nicely to that. So what are the kind of tasks that you'll be doing on a day-to-day basis? Like, for example, this week, what kind of things are you going to be working on this week?
Oh, that's a good question. So this week is firstly a week in a DevRel. The DevRel's job can vary from one week to the other. It really does, because you can do so many things that would generate some sort of an impact depending on your like audience. You could genuinely go in any direction. But for me and my team, we've set Q4 goals. So I'm sort of focusing on that. And for this week, my focus is to get more YouTube videos, screencasts for our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Gitpod, where I'm teaching people how to get started with Gitpod. So I've created around 13 screencasts now, and I still have like I think 5 more in the backlog that I want to record, to put together and then eventually publish. So there's that. I also want to write my developer experience newsletter this week, where it's essentially, it's called DevX Digest, where I just talk about developer experience, because Gitpod's core product is all about developer experience. We want to remove all that friction that developers experience when they open up Gitpod or any developer environment. And also another thing on my list is, this is my favorite part, community stuff. So I am currently in the process of creating a new community initiative at Gitpod, and it's taken a few weeks of work, but we're almost at the end of it. And I'm just excited to tell the world about it and get people involved, because it's sort of our present to the community for just being amazing to each other and to the rest of the community, the rest of the tech community as well. So yeah, I'm really excited. I think those are my 3 main goals this week.
Nice. Yeah, there's a lot of variety in there. So you talked about filming and community and your newsletter. And so I'm kind of wondering, like, does everybody in your team have to be good at all the things, or do you all have different strengths? So like, because, DevRel teams vary in size, don't they? So what's your team like in terms of how you divide stuff up?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I've spoken to other DevRel people, and their teams look very different to mine. So my team is comprised of, I'm trying to remember how many people of my team. So 1, 2, 3, 4 people, not including me. So 5 including me. So we have Mike and Jeff, and they each have their own strengths, and they each do sort of their own thing. So Mike right now, his focus is on like live streaming and building in public and sort of showcasing the power of Gitpod and seeing like what is possible with it. And then Jeff is focusing more on, he's a bit more on the engineering side and looking at new features that we can build on top of Gitpod, and seeing, again, similar to Mike, what is possible on Gitpod, but it focuses more on sort of, I guess, what the users have been, what our community have been talking about recently and stuff like that. So they're both the DevRel dev advocates in my team. And then there's me, who is more focused on community and recently like around developer education. And then we've got another Christine, who she's more the marketing side of it. So in our organization, marketing and DevRel are together in one team, but I know that is heavily debated subject, so I'm not going to go into that. But yeah, so she's in our team as well, doing more of the marketing aspects. And we've also got my manager, Johannes, who manages the whole team. So that brings us all together. So yeah, like we have overlapping skills. I think the thing where I sort of shine the most is I've experienced it all in terms of creating content, and I've done it for new beginners. I've created content for like sort of seasoned developers, and I sort of experimented over the years of what works. So my strength is definitely coming from the, oh, I think we should do this. I have this idea because I did it before and it really works. And yeah, for example, Mike is doing the live streams, and I've done live streams before, so I was like giving him some advice on how he can get started with it. And then yeah, so I think that's sort of like my strength, and also generalized tech, because I know a few different things, but nothing too in depth. But like the people who are sort of getting started with Gitpod and don't know how to get started with in terms of what project to bring, I can like sort of give that knowledge. But yeah, Mike and Jeff have their own separate sort of tech stack that they're really good at, which is really good as well. So yeah, very varied.
Yeah, definitely depends on the team, size of the team, what everyone's done before. And sometimes you find yourself trying out stuff that you hadn't tried before, because
yeah, it's fun.
Sometimes it's a bit of a safe environment to experiment, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely.
like I recently just started doing live streaming. yeah. So cool. Okay, we're coming near to the end of the session, and I really want to get this next speed round in. So we'll do that next, and then we'll go on to some questions from the audience. Are you ready for the next speed round?
Let's do it.
Cool. Okay, like I said, just say the first thing that comes into your head, but keep it family friendly. You know, it's a family show. So Mac or PC?
Mac. Sorry, I'm just really passionate about
I'm just checking. You know, I know this. I just didn't want to assume. Just checking. Favorite country you've been to so far?
Oh, Greece, easily.
Yeah, the food, the
people,
beaches, and everything. Yeah.
Laid back, love it.
I'm with you on that. Yeah, it's been a long time since I went there. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Maximum number of legs you'd want on a pet?
4. Anything else is just weird. Like, are they okay if they have more than 4?
Well, one of my friends had about 50 spiders that he kept as pets.
Oh no.
Like big ones, not just house spiders.
Absolutely not. Nope.
You know. Well, just checking. Like I said, I don't want to assume anything. Town or village?
Town.
Mouse or trackpad?
Trackpad.
Yeah. Burrito or pizza?
Burrito. I love burritos.
I love the way you're just like, trackpad, burrito.
I just love burritos.
Cupcake or donut?
Oh
yeah, we all
tough.
do. I think it's the law.
That one's tough. Gut reaction is donut.
Yeah, go with your gut, especially since this is about food. Kit Kat or Oreo?
Oh, depends on my mood, but it has to be Kit Kat right now. I don't know why.
There doesn't need to be a reason. It's all good. Favorite website?
Favorite website. Oh, am I? No, I'm not going to say that. It would have to be. It have to be YouTube. I learned so much from YouTube, and it's entertaining at the same time. YouTube.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, if you want to know how to do anything, go on YouTube, because somebody's made a video about it, haven't they?
Exactly.
Yeah, that much is true. We're so lucky. We're living in the best times now, regardless of all the bad things that happen. We are living in the best times now. Peak District or Lake District? Oh,
it has to be the Peak District. It has to be. My home in Sheffield is literally next to the Peak District. So
that's why I asked you the question. Again, just verifying, just making sure you're going to give the right answer. Yeah. Best book you've read recently?
Oh, it has to be Brain at Work. I forgot who the author is, but Brain at Work was a really good read. It reminded me of how important it is to, schedule your activities based on your performance of your brain and what is overwhelming or underwhelming or whatever to stimulate your brain. It's really, really good. Highly recommend.
Yeah, that's a good one. We'll put that in the show notes. We'll find out where people can get hold of that and put it in the show notes, because it's definitely important to be self-aware if you're gonna do well. So yeah, I think that's a good recommendation. Music while working, yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
Favorite meal to take away?
Favorite meal to take away? Oh, it has to be chicken Slovakia from the Greek one. The Greek.
Yeah.
Oh, that one's good. Oh, I'm
That
hungry
is good.
now.
Yeah, you just had a steak. Are you hungry
No,
again?
I'm still I get hungry quite easily. I lift really. I was lifting super heavy this morning. Now I'm really hungry for all the food.
Yeah. You've done a lot of exercise. You deserve 2 dinners. I'll give you permission. And the best advice you've been given?
Oh, it has to be. Live your life unapologetically. So just go with your gut and follow your gut, and don't I forgot who said, one of my mentors said this in a better way, but they were just like, you just have to live as yourself because there's no one else like you, and if you hide away to try and like blend in with other people, then you're not going to get anywhere, and you're going to be miserable at the same time if you just try to be like everybody else. Just be yourself and, you know, live life unapologetically.
Yeah, you can say that again. But I did the same event with Dr. Eva, who is a data scientist, and she gave a similar answer to that question. She said, don't be apologetic. So yeah, I love that. Definitely take up that space and do your thing, because you're unique, aren't you? There's only one you. Be the best version of yourself, because everyone else is taken. So
absolutely.
Yeah, cool. So got to the last 10 minutes of the event, and we've had a few questions in from the audience, which I'm going to ask you. But if anyone else has any questions, please do post them in the chat and we'll get around to them. So here's the first one. We talked about, you know, DevRels on Twitter and how it can be very encouraging, but also a bit scary looking at them thinking, oh, you know, they're kind of untouchable, they're so famous and they've got all these followers and I'll never be like that. But who inspires you? Are there any DevRels that you follow and you really, really like?
Oh, that's such a tough question, because I really like a lot of them. But I think, can I name like a few? Is that all right?
Yeah. We don't want anyone to like get upset because you didn't name them. Yeah.
Okay, so I think the first one would have to be Megan. Oh, I forgot her last name. I'm terrible. Megan oh my gosh, I'm live and I forgot. Megan,
it's a difficult question.
Thiegel. Mary Thiegel.
Mary Thingvall.
Yes, that's it. Thingvall. Okay. Yes, yeah. Mary Thingvall. I really love. Yeah. I just love everything that she stands for, and I've read her DevRel book. That was the first book I bought after I got my offer from GitPod, and I was really excited to start my DevRel journey. I read her book, and then that opened up my mind on all the different things DevRels can go into, and also how diverse it is. So she's the first one. She's absolutely brilliant. And the second one will have to be it would have to be Stephanie. You know what? I know people's names, but I'm really bad with their their usernames.
Their Twitter handles.
Yeah, the Twitter handles, but then full names. Stephanie Wong, who is the head of Google Cloud's developer engagement. So she does like the DevRel content for Google Cloud. I've watched her videos over the years. I've watched her streams over the years. I think she is like just absolutely fantastic. And she inspires me a lot in terms of the content I put out there and how I put them out there as well. I think she's great. She's fantastic. So yeah, Stephanie Wong is one. And then finally, I would have to say my other favorite like DevRel person is Nada, who is a DevRel at Edge and Node. Does a lot of things in the fancy, new, exciting Web3 space. Very controversial space right now, but I really enjoy his content. I think like he just gets straight to the point, he explains it well, and he welcomes everyone. And I know him like personally one-on-one as well, and he's like absolutely fantastic, gives the best advice. So yeah, those are the three.
Nice. Thanks for the recommendation. So that last one was Neither Dabbit, wasn't it?
Yeah, Neither Dabbit.
I think his last name is.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we'll put those Twitter profiles in the show notes. So if anyone wants to check out this Twitter profile and maybe follow them, then they can do so. So yeah, thanks so much for giving those folks a shout out. I love the way you bought the book. It was like, oh, I got my first DevRel job. I'm gonna get it now and have a read of that. That's so cool. So,
I have to say, it's actually my only physical
somebody
book.
else has asked. Oh, interesting.
Most of my books are actually on Kindle. Yeah, but then it's that book that I was like, I need to really feel like I'm in the
you need to smell the pages and really get into the DevRel site. Yeah, but there is something about the smell of a new book that you just don't get with Kindle.
It is.
What you do get with Kindle though is the pleasure of pressing the buy now and having that instant purchase. That's what the Kindle gives you.
I love it.
Yeah, the instant. Yeah, but you don't get the smell of a new book, so that's quite cool. So you've got your Kindle and you've got Mary's book, and those are your two things. I love it. Cool. Okay, so somebody else has asked from the audience, is DevRel only a job at companies that make tools for developers? If not, how does the role change between the dev tool company and a consumer facing company?
Oh, that's a really good question. A disclaimer, as I said, I've only started this role in July, and I happen to be in a company where product is at the front and center. I have heard of DevRel people who are more developer advocates internally, but I don't think that's quite common. I don't know, like, again, because most of the people that I know have like a product that they center their DevRel activities around, whereas whereas like the internal facing ones are more like trying to change in developer behavior internally. I guess I think that's a thing as well. But yeah, I don't have that much experience to answer that question, but that from the people I know and from my own experience, it has centered around product. I don't see why it can't be away from the product though. But yeah, I haven't seen that in practice. I don't know.
Yeah, it's mostly about tools for developers and how to make it easier for developers to use them to get what they need to get done.
Yeah.
And you might be working for a consumer product company, like you might be working for Google Cloud, but if you're a DevRel, then you'd be talking about the APIs and stuff like that to the developers. So I guess that would be the difference for me. So you talked a little bit about your team earlier and the makeup of it, and you talked about all the content that you're making, and then somebody typed in the question while you were talking, who decides on the content? Because you've got all these great things that you're doing. Like, do you have a boss? You did say that you had a boss, but like, it sounds like you've got quite a lot of autonomy, or do you?
Yes.
Like, who actually decides what you're going to make?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, that's such a good question. For me, I think for my team, it's a collective thing. So we have ideas on how to improve like the visibility of Gitpod and the content we can create around that. But I think in my opinion, in my experience, it has been a group effort where we have, so every quarter, I've only been at Gitpod since July, but the 2 quarters I've been here, it has been around, we each individually create like a reflection on how the quarter went and then what we want to focus on moving forward. And we have to do this individually, by the way, so we have our own ideas for content and things we should focus on, and then afterwards we come together as a team and then try and merge them all together. What was really funny was going into Q4, a lot of our ideas overlapped, so it was like we were all sort of in the same wavelength, and we all sort of identified the same thing from the community, from our users, and it felt good that we were sort of in a similar sort of path. But yeah, that's sort of how we decided what kind of content we put out there, but there is a lot of autonomy. Like if tomorrow I turn around and say, hey, I think we should focus on X technology because of this, as long as I have like the backup data to say, yeah, our users want this, or yes, this will be useful, then it's pretty much like, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like a good combo of autonomy, but also just that sort of sense checking with the rest of the team to make sure you're not veering off in a wildly different direction from everyone else. Like, oh, what's Pauline doing? Because we're not going to do this sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's quite common. I mean, yeah, I know for me where I work, it's the same thing. So we get to choose what we want to do, but we need to check in with the team as well. And like, there's quite a lot of collaboration within the team too. So we might not be doing something individually. We might say be doing a live stream with 2 people or something like that. So yeah, sounds similar. So last question then. This time's gone really fast with you today. But the last question I've got for you is, what are you excited to learn about or work on next? Because like you say, you haven't been in DevRel for a very, very long time. You're still learning. And this is all still really exciting and new, and you haven't done everything yet that you're going to do at GitPod. So what are you excited to learn about or work on next?
I think the thing I really am excited about is being in an in-person event and seeing our community in person, because I started this role completely remotely, and I've only been talking to a wonderful community on Discord and various different like platforms. But I'm really excited to have the opportunity to be at a conference or a meetup where I can see people and talk about how excited I am about GitPod, because obviously I seem quite biased now because I work for GitPod, but the tech itself and how it's changed my life as an engineer, I'm so excited for it to blow up and for people to be like, why haven't we been working like this before? And so I'm sort of excited to have the opportunity to speak at like larger conferences, to go up on stage and sort of do my thing, which is what I'm good at, talking about something I'm really excited about, and hopefully getting other people excited and having those face-to-face, one-on-one connections and relationships going, because that is what I miss the most. I miss it so much. And so I hope I have the opportunity, especially next year, to fly out to different conferences and meetups to see people, to see our community and connect with them. So
yeah, I know what you mean, because like obviously I'm a community manager as well, and our community is global because we work in tech. So yeah, you can't just like have a little meet up in London and speak to everybody. They're everywhere, and we haven't seen them for a very long time. And like you say, I started my job during the pandemic as well, so it's all been a bit about go on the Discord and chat to people, and it's going to be really interesting to go and meet these people face to face. I don't know when that's going to be. Can you tell me?
Oh, I wish I could tell you. I'm hoping early next year, but I don't know. I'm trying not to get my hopes up too much, but yeah, hopefully we can all see each other again soon, because I'm just excited. I love the energy that we have at the GitPod community, and I just want to help everyone else out and just talk to everyone, because they're all very lovely. So very excited for that, hopefully one day.
Yeah, hopefully one day soon. Well, thanks so much for spending this evening with me, Pauline, and answering all my questions, even the really silly ones.
No, honestly, I've had so much fun. This has probably been the fastest hour I've ever had, like for meetups ever. This was so fast. It was so much fun, and it was lovely to meet all of you.
No worries, it's really nice to meet you too. I've been following you on Twitter for a while, and yeah, it feels like I really know you, but yeah, it was so nice to have this little chat for you and for you to demystify DevRel. And thanks to everybody for coming and joining us today as well. The recording for this event will be up on our YouTube channel very soon, and the recordings of all our past events are already up there, so please do check that out. But until we see you again, look after yourselves, everybody, and take care. Thanks for coming. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Right, so that's where we'll stop the recording. We'll chop it for YouTube.